Hey there, and welcome to the very first episode of the What Am I Doing podcast. That's right, people, it's finally happening. For all of you who had to listen to me ramble and to rant and to rave over the past long while about a podcast and wanting to do that, it is finally happening. Episode 1, right here. This is proof it's gonna happen. I promise. I can't really stop now. So, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. I wanted to take this first episode to kind of go over what this podcast is going to be, why it's going to be a thing, and why I care. Um, in a couple of teasers and stuff like that, I always joked, like, we were kids and we saw the adults around us. We even saw, like, more specifically our parents, and we were like, man, they have it all figured out. I can't wait to be an adult and know, like, what's going on and, like, have money to be able to do the things that I want to do, but also the knowledge behind it and all that. And now we're adults. And we quickly realized, oh, no one has ever really had anything figured out. We're all just kind of stuck in this together and we're trying to figure everything out. Great. This is good. I'm so glad that I figured this out. Well, that's kind of what this podcast is going to be about. There's going to be conversation around some practical ways to just engage your city around you. There's going to be conversation around lofty topics like what we're doing, like why does some of this have to be the way it is. We're just going to be talking about some of those things. But to really start it all off, I know that people want to know why. So I know you also want to probably know a little bit about who you're listening to if you're actually going to invest in this. So my name is Chase Haberland. I am a 29-year-old man. I've been married to my lovely wife, Stacy, for almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years in April. And we have been dating since February 2013. We live in Bethany, Oklahoma, and we have a little doggo named Pistol. He's a good little dude when he wants to be. He can be a butt sometimes, but ultimately he's too cute for his own good, and one day I feel like he will take over. So just be forewarned about that. And no, we did not name him Pistol. That was his name when we adopted him. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a thing. For people from Oklahoma, you probably know why. I'm also, sports, man. Anyway, yeah, like I said, me and Stacy have been married for like 4 years. She is a teacher at the El Reno Public Schools, specifically high school. She teaches theater, speech and debate, and English. She has her hands full most of the time, but she loves those kids with all her heart, and she does such a good job of like caring for them and also teaching them. So that's what she does. I am a resident and I work full-time at Frontline Church in Yukon. And hearing the word resident is a little bit weird. And why is it called that? Well, I plan on going into a lot more depth with that in the future. But right now, I will just say, being a resident, I work full-time at the church. I help out with our worship. I help out with our community and anything and everything else in between, because we're still a church plant. We started this church in June of 2020, full-blown during a pandemic. But we really felt like some of the people in Yukon we just needed to be there for them, to be there, be a church for the city, and to help out in any way we can. That's why we're trying to work together with other churches. That's why we're trying to just kind of be a light in that city. This is actually my second year of residency. I was a resident for a year downtown, and that was coming out of a year of internship, which was a 9-month program at downtown as well. So that's kind of where I'm at. Some things about me: I'm a musician. I've been writing songs for a little bit now. I love to play covers, at different things, like open mic nights. I used to go play at different venues and just play for a few hours and do covers and have fun and stuff like that. I would say I'm an avid video game fan. I'm a big Nintendo fan, so I have, the Nintendo Switch and all that. I'm probably my favorite video game series of all time is Legend of Zelda. I'm a huge fan of that. There's also the Kingdom Hearts series, which a lot of people make fun of because it's so in depth, but I love it. I love it so much. Um, Using a key to knock about baddies is so cool. And then the Final Fantasy series, I'm really, really, really into story games. If you haven't learned that yet, I'm really into story games. I play Destiny 2 probably a little too much. It's a good story, but it's also just kind of, I don't know, it just keeps you coming back because like they have different seasons and DLC that evolve the story over the past several years and stuff like that. Um, yeah, those are the kind of the games I play. I play Super Smash Brothers. So if you ever just want to tangle, um, let's let's get to know each other over a round of Smash and kind of hate each other for a minute and then go back to being friends because that's what Smash does, right? Just like Monopoly, except the effects of the hatred do not last as long in Smash as they do in Monopoly and stuff. So I play video games. I'm a big coffee person, and man, I worked in coffee shops for a few years, and it really just taught me to like appreciate like the tastings of coffee, the ways to prepare coffee, the different things you can do with like iced and hot coffee, like with lattes or even just like shots over ice, all these kind of things that play into it. Um, and I think one of the things that taught me the most is I'm not a coffee snob. There's some people who are like only these beans, and if you drink this type of coffee, you're not a coffee fan. And I think that that is just a little bit of gatekeeping because people can order coffee the way they want. Like some people just want to sip a hot coffee because they want those coffee notes. They want whatever the bean, like how it was ground, however it was poured, prepared, even the roasting process. People want to taste those notes. But then you have people who are like, I don't really enjoy the bitterness of it, but I want an iced vanilla latte. Or I want maybe even just a regular iced latte. Maybe I don't like the taste of just straight up coffee, but I do like the way it tastes with milk or whatever you get. The only reason I'm going to judge you most likely is if it takes 5 minutes to say your order. I'm I'm probably gonna judge you a little bit like that. Upside down, 8 squirts of this, a couple rings of caramel, blah blah blah. It's like, bro, just chill a little bit, just chill. I also like to play disc golf. Whenever it's warm, I like to go tear up the turf. I don't know. I don't know disc golf language. I just know I like to throw discs and I like to aim them at poles that have chains around them, and then they make the clink, and I feel good about myself. Um, that's a lie. I know a little bit about the game, but I'm not like hardcore good or into it. Like some people have like 80 discs and they've been out there like 80 days in a row and they know every single hole and exactly how hard they need to throw it to get this yardage. And like I'm not that great at that stuff, but I do like to play. So if you ever have a time and you want to go play disc golf, come watch me be kind of mediocre at it. So there we go. Kind of some of the things that inspired me to do this podcast. I'll go ahead and get it out of the way. I'm a Christian, and yeah, if you know me, well, hopefully it's obvious, but I'm a Christian. My faith has inspired a lot of how I see the world. My faith in Jesus is one of the reasons why I wanted to start this. It's helped me see a lot of the pain and suffering that a lot of people go through. I went through some hard years, like mentally, and it just really helped me see how much, like, even just like a standard person needs help. Um, a lot of this conversation in this podcast is going to be faith inspired because my life is faith inspired. I'm not going to drill something into your face. That's not who I am. But just know, whenever we come into a topic, my ideals and the way that I see life and the way that my lens is kind of pictured and focused on is through the light of Jesus. But know that I'm never going to drill that in your face. And honestly, we're going to have a lot of different opinions on here. We're going to have a lot of different conversations. My opinion is not going to be the only one stated. And honestly, I'm hoping that we're having a lot of conversations coming from different backgrounds, coming from different beliefs, coming from different views, and all that. So that's one thing that inspired this podcast. So, what am I doing is going to be a podcast that has conversations around like what is kind of going on in life. It is, I want to start, it is not going to be a how-to podcast. This is not going to be like a get your stuff together DIY advice, like this is how you do this podcast. Now, there's going to be times when we talk about like, hey, how do I do this? And we have people talk about like, well, this is how I've experienced like the world around me, and this is how I jumped in, this is how I helped other people, or when I needed help, this is how I found it. But this is not going to be an advice column. This is not just going to be telling you how to get your crap together. It's also not going to be a religious podcast. Despite like my faith and stuff like that, like this is not just going to be a topic around, hey, Jesus, Jesus and more Jesus and the church and Jesus and church and Jesus. And like, it's not going to be like that, but I mean, my faith is going to inspire stuff, but we're not just going to focus on like theological topics, focus on this and that. What it is, though, is it's going to be centered around this idea of I'm a 29-year-old man. I admitted that full well earlier, but I don't know a lot. There is so much in this world that I do not know. I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. And honestly, if we all kind of look at ourselves a little bit, none of us really do. There's some things we've been taught that kind of help us get through things in our life. Whether that be easy things like paying bills or just having a bank account, or maybe like, hey, how do I struggle with the fact that I hate my job or that I don't even know like what I'm doing 5 years from now. We've been taught kind of how to deal with those things. Or maybe we just figured it out on our own. And maybe we haven't figured that stuff out yet. Maybe like we're paying bills and we have a roof over our head and maybe a way to get to work, but the whys and even the motivation or even the way to do it well where you're not freaking out over budget or just everyday life stuff, maybe that hasn't clicked yet. And that's what this is a conversation around. Just because we all don't know stuff doesn't mean we don't have knowledge about an area more so than in somebody else. Like I'm going to know more about some things than I am other things, but I most likely have like a friend, or at least I can come into contact with someone who knows more about that other thing than I do. And we can meet together and our stuff balances. That's one cool thing about me and Stacy. Like, I am definitely a dreamer. I have that like 1,000 feet in the sky like view. I love having ideas, and I love like asking the whys and why would we do this? Why does this matter? What is important about it? And she's like, here's a plan. I need to have a plan. And we're going to have this, and then we're going to do this, and this is going to be laid out. That way it actually happens. So we balance each other out, and like I help her see like a lot of the big heart behind things, a lot of the big vision and ideas, and she helps me put my feet on the ground instead of just floating up in the air the whole time with my eyes in the sky. So that's kind of what this is about. What am I doing? What does it mean to me? It is a conversation focused around like, we can't do this we can't do this alone. We have to do this together. Community, whether we like it or not, like it has to be a focus in our life. We need other people around us to help us when we're down, to kind of show us like ways to cope, ways to like find resources, and not even just for ourselves, but like, you're going to know things other people don't. You're going to have been through things that other people are just now experiencing, or maybe they haven't experienced, so they might not have empathy towards it. And community is this beautiful thing where we come together and we start seeing different perspectives. Our worldview changes. We get to see how other people are living through this. And if we don't have that, we're closed off. Other people are closed off. And the more we try to live this world closed off, the harder it's going to be. So I want to start a podcast around this. I enjoy talking. I enjoy having conversations with people. So why not start a podcast? Why not like put something out there where if this even reaches one person who might have gotten a little hope from it, might have gotten a little bit of like light from one of the conversations I have, whether it be like something serious or man, you talked about that album and I actually listened to that album now and it helps me on hard days because it just makes me dancey. Or maybe it's a sad song and maybe I just needed to be sad for a second and now I'm good. So I want to start this podcast because, man, what if one conversation just impacted one person? I think that's a big deal. I think that's important. So this podcast is going to be a look at our city. It's going to be a look at our people around us. You know, like how do we engage with our city? How do we find out resources that can help us? How do we find resources that can help other people? How can I be a light? Maybe by volunteering or even just knowing where to go when people need things or even just being a resource for other people. How can I be a resource for my neighborhood? What about the houses around me? What about the businesses around me in my neighborhood that are local or we know people in and we know that maybe they work there and they're having a hard time? Like those are things we can be looking at and then even narrow it down to like our street. Who are our neighbors? Are they doing okay? Like with this pandemic over the past year, especially like noticing the people who might not have been okay. Maybe noticing like people who are having a harder time than others and getting to know your neighbors. And then even more specifically, the people right next to you. That's hard. Getting to know your actual neighbor is very difficult because it's easy for us to just walk out of our apartment or our home or whatever and get to our car and go where we're needing. It's easy to just maybe hear maybe like a little bit of an overheard conversation like in an apartment on another apartment, or maybe it's easy to just see people like walking their dogs and be like, I'm over here, you're over there, stay in our lanes. And it's really easy for us to just kind of pull back, especially with how our culture is today. But man, even just stopping to say hi to someone walking their dog, or even just like something like that can change someone's complete outcome. So that's what this is a conversation around. And just to give you a little bit of foresight for the coming episodes, I'm going to be doing interviews with people. I've already done a few, but what these interviews include, I've spoken with Will Gaines. He's a local musician. He is also a worship director at Frontline South, but I talked with him about local music. I talked with him about like booking and what it's like to get into the music scene and things that just kind of help around that and what his story was. I spoke with Corey Hall. She is staff at Frontline Downtown, but more than that, she has been involved with so much of our city. With the Homeless Alliance, with the day shelters, the City Rescue Mission, with all these things, with our homeless population in Oklahoma City, but also with a lot of the city goings. She sits in like town meetings, in all these things that keep her aware of what's going on in the city around her to help her know like what people are going through and how she can help. She just has such a huge realm of knowledge about what is around her in OKC and like the mental state, the physical state of our people in OKC. And it was such a privilege to talk with both of them just to get insights on that. So like part of the episodes are going to be like just like a little bit of a conversation around what we talked about. And then the other part's just going to be me just picking a topic and kind of talking about it and then transitioning into one of those interviews. I want to talk about music. I want to talk about movies. I want to talk about books and video games and things that people are actually like holding on to in this moment, like fun things like that. But I'd also love to talk about the hard things, like the pandemic really shook me up, or man, like I don't know how to deal with some of the things going on around me. I know that there are hard things that I'm suffering through. Like, we've all kind of been in this like depressive funk, like not just like a group of us, but like almost as a whole nation. We over the last like year and a half, there's been this like depressive funk because of everything going around. I want to have conversations around that. I want to have conversation around um, breaching these generational gaps that we've built, and they're there. Gen Z, millennial, Gen X, boomers, baby boomers, all this stuff, there's a gap there. And it's very clear and it's very divisive. And I think that it'd be cool to have a conversation around that. So we're going to be having some fun conversations. We're going to be having some deep conversations. Wherever you like to tune in, please do. It's been such a joy to create this, to like have this in process, but actually to get it out there as well. I'm super excited for what's to come. And just to kind of take a look back at the last year, I spent a little bit of time doing a little bit of question and answer with some people about things that really kind of they experienced in the last year. Like, what was their top music? Or maybe their favorite TV show or movie? What was a book that they read over the last year that inspired them? I also asked, like, what was something that brought hope in your city around you? Or what was something that helped you personally through the last 12 months? This is a little bit of Q&A that I decided to ask, and I'd like to spend the next part of this episode just kind of ended out on you listening to the voices of the people around you, the voices of your city, the voices of your community. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this little bit of Q&A. So what is an album or an artist or even just a song that really helped you out through the last year, or that really stuck out, that really maybe you even just got stuck on?
You inflicted it on me.
Oh, you're welcome.
It was Half Alive. Never heard of him before. What was it, like October or something? And specifically the song Trust by them. It's just perfect.
Sea shanties, man. I don't know why, but like last year I got super into sea shanties, and specifically The Longest Johns. But like a specific song that I got super into was probably 21's Pilots, Level of Concern. Super into that song. I love it. It's so good.
Maggie Rogers' album was amazing. Chloe and Hallie's album was amazing. Those two things were great. And then this is sort of a podcast and a piece of music, but I really love the podcast Dissect. And what they do is dissect an entire music album from one artist and talk song by song. And so this year I listened to them dissect Lemonade by Beyonce. And so I listened to that over and over again and listened to Cole Kushner's podcast on that. And then they also dissected Because the Internet by Childish Gambino.
One artist, one album, the Citizens, the Citizens acoustic phone demo. Those were just really, I love Citizens. It was very perfect for the year. They always hold, like pain and kind of frustration in one hand while also holding like encouragement and hope in the other.
Surprisingly, it was the new Need to Breathe album, which is interesting because I always thought they were like my parents' style of music. But their Out of Body album was just, I don't know, really good for me in a lot of ways.
What is a show or movie that stuck out to you in 2020?
I took this year to rewatch most of Christopher Nolan's movies.
The last movie I can think of is Klaus. It's not from this year, but I did watch it this year. And it's just a very good Christmas movie.
We started Masked Singer. We got into Masked Singer and actually have caught up fully, which I don't know. It's kind of surprising. You wouldn't think we would be into that. And we didn't think we would either. We kind of stumbled into it, but it's surprisingly entertaining.
I watched the last season of The Crown and it was really good.
Like Mandalorian, I dove into that rabbit hole willingly.
Taskmaster, I got into that this year.
What's that?
Taskmaster is a British television show. Every season, they get like 5 comedians together. They compete in these different like tasks, these different goofy challenges.
I mean, for me, it's the same show that has been the last couple years as the British baking show. I mean, I have gotten so much inspiration from that show.
What was your favorite book that you read in 2020?
So mine was Rescuing the Gospel from the Cowboys, a Native American expression of the Jesus Way by Richard Twiss.
Why was it such an important book this year?
Because I think, especially this year, American Christianity really buys into the whole manifest destiny of we are Christians, so we deserve this, and God promised us this, and we kind of just rewrite anybody who's not in that manifest destiny. And this whole book is about Native Americans got displaced and slaughtered by Christians in the name of Jesus, and this Native American is taking Jesus' name back and saying, like, no, we don't need to see Christianity as a colonization, but as actually, like, liberating, and this is why.
This year, I read Eye of the World, the first in the Wheel of Time series, and I've been getting into that series.
Prayer Volume 1 or something like that by Strahan.
Yeah, I read this book called Cult of Glory about the Texas Rangers and their founding and their history, and the author did a really great job of explaining just how terrible the Texas Rangers were, their history of eliminating indigenous people, but it was also a helpful perspective because it speaks a lot to our culture about how we like make heroes out of villains. And then like a fun fiction book I read is I just reread Ready Player One.
What is something that you might have seen in your city this year that might have given hope or even just was something worth celebrating?
Through terrible leadership, I really appreciated the mayor's leadership. I feel like, being Oklahoma City, Mayor Holt's leadership has been some of the better leadership happening in the pandemic. There
was that foodie lady who started posting on Facebook about all the restaurants that were going under and just how the community rallied around them and brought them back. Like, that was so cool, and it was such a neat spotlight on different ethnicities and stories you wouldn't have heard. And that one would be mine, I think.
Yeah, I think one of the things that gave me hope also kind of hurt a little bit, which was this past summer we had a city council meeting where people were sharing their stories of police interactions, and they were really difficult and hard to hear. There were people who had experienced family members being killed by the police and their own stories of having really terrible interactions, and trying to process those in a city council meeting was really hard. And there were a lot of tears and there was a lot of anger, but in the same moment there was a space of like collective grief and suffering, and then collective coming together to like hold those people and to honor their stories and their experiences. And in that I felt hope that like through our shared experiences and honoring each other's hurt and hardship, we can like build hope. And I think that like hope is definitely something that has to be built for a lot of people.
What is something in these last 12 months that helped you get through these last 12 months? Something that was just like a spot of joy, or even just, I don't know, just like a little bit of a help, a little bit of light.
Humor has definitely helped me get through the last few months. Twitter and the OKC Twitter community has been a fun way to engage.
A corny answer, but my friends, the people around me that God has put around me.
Like our family unit, we laid some pretty big foundations with buying a house and having a kid, both of which were a little crazy during a pandemic.
Among other things, wearing a mask so that people can't see my expression.
So obviously the birth of Addie was a huge point. I think even through that, I mean, the pregnancy and all that, feeling her and just the excitement and the nervousness and the fear really helped keep my mind off what was going on elsewhere. When we moved in our new house, like starting to plan our yard and the garden and how we want it to attract animals and creatures and keep that ecosystem native. And so we've been really researching native plants and things that grow there, and that really helped me this year. It's just like getting outside and gardening and planting that. And
humor for sure got me through it, and then honestly just being a follower of Jesus, there's nothing that speaks to me as deeply as like his word. And so I tried to spend a lot of time diving into that this year. Spending time studying the word with other people on my own had helped, but like humor is also a part of the Bible, and so we can't ignore the fact that like laughter is good medicine, and that was what I needed this year.
Hey, thank you for listening to the very first episode of the What Am I Doing podcast. By the time you're hearing this, you can go ahead and go follow the What Am I Doing podcast on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and even TikTok. I'll be posting things there regularly to keep you updated with the podcast and to just kind of provide some entertainment. See you next time.